We all adore tiny things that fit in the palm of our hand. But have you thought about tiny gadgets that actually could do that? The immense amount of technology commences barely from a small chunk of hard work, research, and many downfalls. But what about tech appliances that are tiny in their makings? Do you want to know about it? If so, keep watching the video till the end. Here we begin. Number 9. Pocket Sprite, an ultra-compact gaming system. The Pocket Sprite is a pocket-sized retro gaming console that allows you to play everything. It's been designed to be highly playable, simple to use, and simple to update, with the ability to pick up where you left off and put it down again. The ambitious Pocket Sprite is a crowd-funded gaming system roughly modeled after the Game Boy, but is also about the size of a car key fob. This tiny mobile game device includes storage, RAM, sound, Wi-Fi connections, a battery, and classic controls like a D-pad, an A/B button, and start or select, all on a device about 2 inches high. Obviously, this makes playing a little more difficult, which adds to the excitement. However, Pocket Sprite is compatible with Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Sega Game Gear, and Sega Master System's emulators, so you can play your old favorites on it. Jeroen Domberg, the creator of Pocket Sprite, hopes that people will use the platform to create their own indie games and a mini market. It's definitely a better way to waste time than a fidget spinner. Number 8. Nano car with tiny operating wheels. When someone created a nano car, we are not kidding, but have you thought about how the idea of nano cars came? Well, one of the chemistry professors is Ben Elferinga, who directed the program to formulate a true nano car, which is basically the size of a complicated molecule, but it's small. You must have seen those tiny cars on the roads. Now, there were nano cars around before that, but they were barely prototypes that experimenters had to pull around with their small scanning tunneling micro nano cars. This edition has 4 wheels built with specific molecular bonds that are reactive to electrons. Now, scientists can utilize their STMs to blast electrons at this nano car that makes the wheels respond, and they move the atoms around to develop local worm. This might be complicated for you to understand. Let me explain it briefly. It's an operational molecular car. Well, you see, Feringa was one of 3 scientists who newly earned Nobel Prizes for their endeavor in nanotechnology. He wishes the precepts of the nano car can finally be utilized to establish self-propelled nanomachines that can be utilized to achieve valuable assignments. Number 7. A drone that can fit on the tip of your finger. Can we make flying devices? This is another space where we watch a bunch of competitions, including some popular disappointments, but no one has gone quite as tiny as Eric's, and this is the Aries quadcopter. This small, completely applicable drone can lay effortlessly on your finger, but works. Its recharging route is certainly the inner of the gamer-friendly supervisions you utilize to move it around via a 2.4 GHz connection. I am certain you have seen many drones now being utilized for many works, but this tiny drone is no less than any other drone. And some scientists even argue that these are better. Do you want to know why they think so? Let's talk about it now. Well, you will find that charging takes only 15 minutes and provides you with around 5 minutes of flight time, which is enough to fool around a bit. Fortunately, all credits go to the 6-axis stabilizations, which makes your short escape inclined to be calm. There are furthermore some pleasurable LED lights for firefly-like night lights, but it's instructed that outdoor practice isn't precisely approved. Number 6. The smallest mobile phone ever produced. What would you prefer to give rise to a smartphone so tiny you can hardly utilize it? Who needs a tiny smartphone, right? According to the inventors, it was barely a challenge to watch if they could accomplish it. So, do you want to know about it? Well, the mobile phone is called Zenko Tiny T1. It is barely big enough to browse the screen and type on the small keypad. The smartphone may be tiny but works too largely. It can carry 300 phone numbers and 50 text messages and arrives with a nano SIM card that you can program for any accessible network. The smartphone is of course 2G, but it doesn't precisely require a lot of data for easy phone calls and texts. Are you thinking about charging time? The battery survives around 180 minutes of conversation time, which is relatively remarkable for a smartphone of this size. So, are you thinking about what exactly its benefits are? First, let's talk about it. While the entire aspect is largely an engineering undertaking, the starter delivers some impressions about what you could accomplish with a phone like this. Number 5. The smallest sensor in the world never needs a battery. You must thank Fujitsu for this super small sensor that is only 82mm long and 24mm broad. Although the corporation names it the tiniest sensor equipment in the world, which is a little distant, it appears to be the tiniest independent sensor anyone has generated. It utilizes wireless transmissions technology to sense aspects like temperature and humidity onto bigger equipment for the exhibition. Do you know it's the most impressive feature? Okay, let me tell you. Most remarkable, this tiny guy doesn't require a battery and never runs out of energy when appropriately positioned. So, how does it work? What power is it if not a battery? That's because it runs on solar power, and a fundamental solar cell is sufficient to maintain the sensor operating indefinitely. So, this is certainly a good way to save the environment, right? And combine this with the capacity to transfer the wireless signal and you can detect why the equipment might be a big undertaking. One of the most reasonable applications is environmental science and project provision, where dozens of these detectors can be spread across a broad region where electricity and even people strive to enter. Then, they can compile the monitoring evidence for years. Number 4, the smallest web server in the world is just a dot. You will find that there are two extremely remarkable aspects of this server. Initially, it was just the size of a match head. Next, it was given rise to it, which is way back in 1999, when conventional servers were anything but small and mobile. The story started with a graduate pastime at the University of Massachusetts, where Harihara Subramanian Sri Kumar constructed and established the server with the tiniest microcontroller chip accessible then. It wasn't even an academy undertaking. He barely did it on his own time. Do you believe it? Well, most genius people are like that, only aren't they? You will find many examples of it. In only a few months of operations, the small server could link up to 450 web pages for 6,000 users for a machine that measured a quarter of an inch at its broadest. Of course, web servers were less sophisticated back then and didn't disseminate as much difficult content. Internet users were more sympathetic. Moreover, the server barely had 256 bytes of memory and a fundamental serial port connection. Still, it rested the foundations for the Internet of Things and other main progress to be complete in the coming years. Number 3. The tiniest satellite is the creations of a brilliant team. Look how tiny that satellite is! You could lose it in a backpack. But it's a real satellite developed by 18-year-old Rifath Shahrukh and his science team. India has even launched the satellite via a NASA rocket, where the cute little cube presents around 125 minutes in space before detaching as planned and falling into the ocean. All the equipment on board the satellite was designed to pick up basic readings, which appeared to do successfully. The circuit boards were protected by a 3D printed carbon fiber polymer, and inner tech included a nano Geiger counter to measure radiations in space. So, what were you doing when you were 18? Number 2. The world's tiniest violin is invincible. Well, you may find it false, but let me tell you that it is true. The tiniest violin is invincible, and thanks to the wonders of science, playing the world's tiniest violin is no longer barely a harsh turn-off phrase, but it is apparent. And the credits go to a little something called Project Soli. Project Soli was a Google undertaking concentrated on developing a computer chip that utilized radar to observe movements. Project Soli had various practical intentions, comprising the capacity to run very tiny movements into sound, and you can watch where this is going. Number 1. The smallest radios that will ever exist. How tiny do you assume the tiniest functioning radio is? Recall that we have discovered computers the size of a grain of salt and drones that can stabilize on the tip of your finger. Well, the smallest radio is way beyond that. And all the credits go to the task from a squad of scientists at Berkeley. The smallest fully functional radio is barely the size of a solitary carbon nanotube. Are you wondering how that functions? Well, the nanotube is placed between two ultra-small electrodes that jointly can work as a receiver, amplifier, tuner, and everything else that radio requires. Furthermore, the creative electric essence of the carbon nanotube enables it to shift between all of these positions as required. The microscopic additions can pitch into a radio signal and play through an outer speaker. This is a remarkable creation, right? This radio is very popular, and it's been in the market for a long time. Even a smaller version that presently prevails utilizes similar beliefs in aspects like pink diamonds, albeit in a more exclusive form. Do you know that small radios have other uses besides being a speaker? These small radios have several medical applications, but much of their ability is unused. That's maybe because these are expensive and require more experiments to fully utilize them in other sectors. So, that's all for today. What do you think about these tiniest techs in the world? Did you find any of them useful for you? Let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell icon for more such videos.